Okay, guys, this is Learning Unit 6, Exercise 6, Question 1.1. Basically, they are saying create a truth table for, and they give you a function. So they give us this function of x, y, and z, and they want to know what the truth table is for not x and y, or not y and not z. Okay, so I've just rewritten the function here, and I've just put brackets around the parts that we have to do first. Obviously, the order of precedence says that we have to do and before or. So I've just put brackets around there just to help myself out. Okay, now I know that we have got x, y, and z. So I'm going to fill in x, y, and z. Okay, those are my inputs. And I know that there are going to be 8 inputs because I've got 2 to the power 3, 2 to the power of however many inputs we've got. And I will just fill those in quickly. Right, there are my 8 inputs. Okay, so now I need some working columns. Okay, so I need some columns for my workings. So I can see here that I'm going to need a not x. Okay, so that I'm going to need that because I'm going to have to end up ANDing it with y. So I need to have what is the value of not x. So I'm just going to make a column for me for not x. Okay, I see I'm also going to need not y. Okay, there's not y there. So I'm going to have to put a not y there. I need a column for that. Then I see I also need a not z as well. So I need a column for not z. Okay, so that takes care of sort of individuals pieces that I need. Now I know that once I've got not x and I've got y, I need to know what the result is of that and there. Okay, so I'm going to have a not x and y. I need to know what is that result. And for similar reason, I need to know this as well, not y and not z. So I've got not y and not z. So that's pretty much everything, because now if I take that and OR it with that, I get my result. So I'm just going to put RES there. That's going to be my result in that last column. So those are all the columns I need for my working out. So this is not x, so I'm just going to invert this. So that is going to be that. This is not y, so I'm going to invert the y column. Too quick. Okay, so that is not y. And now I do exactly the same. I need not z. Okay, so I've got my not x, my not y, and my not z. So now I'm going to do an AND on the not x column. So this column here, not x and y. Okay, so I'm going to be ANDing that. Okay, so I've got 0 and a 1, or a 1 and a 0. That's going to give me a 0. I've now got a not x and y. I've got 1 and a 0 again, which is a 0. I've got a 1 and a 1 this time, so I've got a 1. I've got a 1 and a 1 this time, so I've got a 1. Here I've got a not x here of 0 and a 0 gives me a 0. I've got a 0 and a 0 gives me a 0 again. I've got a 0 and a 1 gives me a 0. And I've got a 0 and a 1 gives me a 0. Okay, so that is what I get for not x and y. So now I must do not y, not z. So I'm going to AND these two columns together. So 1 and 1 gives me a 1, 1 and 0 gives me a 0, 0 and 1 gives me a 0, 0, 0 gives me 0, 1 and 1 gives me a 1, 1 and 0 gives me a 0, 0 and 1 gives me a 0, 0 and 0 gives me a 0. So that there is a result of ANDing not y and not z. Now the last piece of this puzzle is just to come up with the result. So the result is just an OR between these two columns that I've now got, this one and that one. Okay, so there I've got a 0 or 1. 0 or 1 gives me a 1. 2 zeros, if I OR them, give me a 0, because I just need one of them to be a 1 to get a 1. That's a 1, that's a 1, that's a 0, that's a 0, that's a 0. So there we go. That there is the truth table for that function that we were given.